Hey everyone, so I'm going to be reading this article out of the Foundation for Economic Education, and I got to tell you, it's a great article, and it's actually regarding a book, a novel, that I have yet to read. I do have it on hand. I haven't bought the series, but I do have it in PDF form. But I have yet to get the time to sit down and read it, but I definitely plan on doing so. Because depending on how things go, it could prove to be very enlightening as to what the future may entail for many of us in the West, or at least those of us who challenge the ruling establishment. Headline: To encounter hell on earth, read the Gulag Archipelago. Solzhenitsyn's epic treatise has much to teach us. This was contributed June 15th, 2016 by Art Carden. A few months ago I read Alexander Solzhenitsyn's epic The Gulag Archipelago, which is 3 volumes and about 2,000 pages of sordid memoir recounting one of history's darker examples of man's inhumanity to man. Excused by enthusiasts for socialism as the tragic excesses of Stalin's rule, Solzhenitsyn showed that the archipelago predated Stalin and continued after his demise. To read the Gulag Archipelago is terrifying. It is to be immersed in a world turned upside down, a nightmare in which right is left, black is white, freedom is slavery, war is peace, and ignorance is strength. Here are a few things that struck me. 1. Free speech and free inquiry are among the first things to go. Solzhenitsyn recounts example after example of scenarios in which the free flow of information is suppressed and in which people's minds are beaten mercilessly with propaganda. Sound familiar? It sure does to me, because we're definitely experiencing a ramp up in propaganda in recent years. Those who promised socialist heaven created Hobbesian hell. Demands for denunciation and confession were among the archipelago's most terrifying pathologies. Trust and norms of generalized reciprocity were destroyed as everyone was turned into a spy. If you see something, say something, so to speak. Or even if you didn't see anything, say something anyways. So yeah, getting everyone all paranoid, right? Playing that the boogeyman's just in the next room, or just around the corner, or just down the street. Or it could even be your neighbor, right? That divisive identity politics. Yeah, that's very much, once again, very prevalent today. 3. It's easy to dehumanize and mistreat the other. Think about the horrors of the Stanford prison experiment and the Milgram experiments on how quick we are to yield to authority, but in real life. You will be appalled by the lengths to which the party went to strip prisoners of their humanity and their dignity. All, of course, in the name of creating a new and great society. Yeah, by the way, if you haven't seen the Stanford prison experiment or the Milgram experiments, which is the one, the Milgram experiment, I remember that one in particular, is where they're hooking people up and pretending that they're shocking the other person. And just because the guy's got a lab coat on, the person sitting there will turn the dial up to the point where the person on the other side could be dying. But because the person that's turning the dials believes they're being told to do so by an authority, they continue to do so. Scary, scary stuff. And like I say, it represented, as a study, a substantial portion of the people that were willing to do that. And people that you would perceive as normally good people. Normally decent people, at least. And then the Stanford prison experiment was when I believe, actually I'll try to find them and actually no, they're linked right to this article. So actually, if you click on the links, you'll be able to get those experiments. But the prison experiment is where they took, I believe it was university students, and they split them up into 2 groups. One who were going to play the role of the prisoners, and the other group was going to play the role of the prison guards. And you see just how authoritarian and tyrannical the ones who played the role of the guards were. And this was towards their own peers, folks. Think about how that would have played out in a completely different scenario or situation where everyone's complete strangers. This is scary stuff that didn't just happen then, but you could also find stories and instances like this coming from the many tales of what happened under the Nazi regime in Germany or the Maoist regime of China. Authoritarian collectivism, folks. Yeah, it's dangerous stuff. And not only has it landed on the shores of North America, but it's also spreading and posing a real threat to individual liberty. Along the way, I also read James Otterson's The End of Socialism and Thomas Sowell's Wealth, Poverty, and Politics. The End of Socialism is one of 2 book-length replies to G.A. Cohen's Why Not Socialism. The other is Jason Brennan's Why Not Capitalism. Otteson points to a section in which Cohen refers to the market as a casino, which is difficult to escape. And he also discusses Cohen's assertion that the inequalities emerging under capitalism fray the social fabric. The Gulag Archipelago speaks to Cohen's argument. First, if there is an environment that is difficult to escape, it is the non-market societies of socialist countries. Communism produced the Berlin Wall in North Korea. To the best of my knowledge, no one has ever been forced at gunpoint to stay in the casino at the Bellagio. Second, the replacement of financial with political inequality clearly shredded the social fabric. Cohen's claim, incidentally, is empirical, and some of my work shows that it is inconsistent with the evidence. Third, Cohen justifies his endorsement of socialism as an ideal by using a camping trip as a thought experiment. He points out, correctly I think, that few of us would enjoy a camping trip in which every interaction is market mediated and in which we are doing for others not because of others' needs, but because of what others will do for us. As Otteson notes, though, Cohen's assumption that the camping gear and whatnot are simply there is problematic. It is interesting that Cohen would use a camping trip as his thought experiment. History has shown us that socialist camping trips have been far more like the nightmares described by Solzhenitsyn in the Gulag Archipelago than the friendly trip Cohen used as his thought experiment. In light of this history, so well documented, we can and should consider socialism as little more than a path to hell on earth. Art Carden is an associate professor of economics at Samford University's Brock School of Business. In addition, he is a senior research fellow with the Institute for Faith, Work, and Economics, a senior fellow with the Beacon Center of Tennessee, and a research fellow with the Independent Institute. So anyways, folks, I'll place a link to this article in the description of the video below, and I would definitely suggest and recommend, and I'm going to do that for myself and stop procrastinating, try to set aside some time to read the Gulag Archipelago. But in addition to that, yeah, click on those two links and check out those experiments. Once again, quite eerie and unnerving, to be honest with you. It's that concept. It's those order followers. It's that blind conformity to authority that has been at the heart, that is the core reason, the core premise that has caused the deaths just in the 20th century alone of over 100 million people. And that's just in the big grand examples. But that kind of thing happens every day in Western society. Most of the time it flies under the radar, is never truly reported on, and kind of swept under the rug under the pretense that we all live in modern free democracies that respect the rule of law. Like I say, in reality, that couldn't be any further from the truth. And I know that with firsthand experience. I haven't been thrown in the gulag as of yet, but I've definitely felt the heavy hand of authoritarian collectivism. And 10 years later, I'm still continuing to live it, with seemingly no way out and very few options left. So yeah, articles like this, it really hits home with me, because it shines a bit of a spotlight on the potential of what the future may bring. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.